Okay, so eventually, if you're knitting a big lace shawl, you're gonna run out of one ball of yarn and you're gonna need to start with another one. And putting a knot in lace is not a good idea because you're going to have to weave in ends, and weaving ends in something that has that kind of patterning is going to be very difficult, and then you'll have little bits floating out and everything. So what you essentially need to do is make a seamless join to make it look like that ball of yarn never actually stopped. And there's two different ways to do that. You can spit splice or you can do a Russian join. And a spit splice, as nasty as it sounds, is actually felting the yarn slightly together. It's going to be slightly thicker in that area as well, but not so much that it's going to be noticeable. And what you're essentially doing is just creating a very small area of felted material that's about the same size as the original strand of yarn. And once it's in there and you've knitted it in, it is as strong as the rest of the yarn. You're not going to have to worry about it coming out as long as you do it right. So what you want to do, now this works on any kind of material that will felt, so 100% wool, 100% alpaca, or something that's much more wool and alpaca than other fibers. You're not going to be able to do it with anything that has a cotton or acrylic content. So you definitely want to know the content of your wool. So in a spit splice, what you want to do is you want to take both ends, your end that you finished with and your end that you're going to start, and unravel them a bit. Now it's best if you don't cut this yarn. You want to rip it because you're going to get a very fuzzy edge, and that's actually a really good thing. So you want to do about 2 inches where you unravel it and actually pull apart all of the little fibers and make it kind of a frayed end. So it's going to look a little junky, but that's actually a good thing because, especially if you're a spinner, you'll understand this. You're basically going to be replying it with the other side. So here's a little bit of that. You can kind of see how many fibers go into making this yarn. Lace yarn is generally spun pretty well, so it can be a little bit hard to get that fuzzed up, but you'll get there. Sometimes it helps to actually run a pet comb through it too. That'll fluff it up. So this one doesn't want to cooperate quite as well. So once you have that all fuzzed up, you need to add heat, friction, and a little bit of liquid. And that's what you need for felting anything. And the friction comes from your hands. The heat also comes from the friction from your hands. And the liquid, you could use water, but spit happens to contain a good amount of proteins and actually works as a much better binder. So, may not look pretty, but it's the best way to do it. Now, you don't have to go hocking loogies into your hand or anything because, nobody really wants to see that when you're at knit night. So, what I would recommend doing is you just lick your palms. So, before you do that, you've got your 2 little fuzzy ends. You're going to lay them over each other so that the fuzzed out portions overlap each other with a little bit of the fuzz coming over each end that is still twisted as yarn. So there we go, we've got that. Put a little bit of saliva on your palm, put the join right there, and just rub it. Roll it back and forth. Get good friction in there, and then that's it. You've got one piece of yarn. And that's a spit splice. And that's going to be just as strong as the rest of the yarn. Now, if you have yarn that has a high silk content like our gloss, it's not going to felt. So spit splicing is not going to be an option. What you want to do in that case is a Russian join. So when you get to each end, you've got the end that you ended with and the one you're going to start, you want to take each one, make a little loop, just fold it over, and fold each one over itself. So essentially you have this little section with 2 doubled over strands that are just looped around each other. Then take the loose end, thread it through a fine needle, and you're going to take that end and sew it back through itself, starting pretty close to the join if you can. And this will take some concentration because it's definitely not the easiest thing in the world to do. And you don't have to do it for very long. I mean, you don't have to go for a whole foot or anything like that, although if you did, it would be even stronger. Just go in and out, little stitches, and pull that end through. And then do the same on the other side. Ideally, you would go a little bit farther than that, but for demonstration purposes, it's just a little short piece here. So again, on the other side, you just want to go through, in and out, between the plies, or actually piercing the plies themselves is a good idea, because then there's a better likelihood that eventually they will kind of felt together a little bit. And pull that through, pull it nice and tight. There you go, a Russian join. And then you would just trim those ends and try to fray them a little bit, but you'll never see them. And that as well is just as strong as the rest of the yarn. And if you want to know how strong this yarn is, you don't have to be afraid of it. It's not going to break by looking at it. Some cobweb yarns might, but see, here's some alpaca cloud. This is our lightest weight lace yarn. It looks like nothing, like dental floss, right? Dental floss is pretty strong, by the way. Observe. This is one of your standard big, heavy office staplers. Put a little bit of alpaca cloud around there. No problem. It is just as strong, if not a little bit stronger, than some other yarns you're going to use. So you don't have to be afraid with it. You can be rough with it. You can, wrap it around your finger as many times as you want. Throw it in your bag. You're going to be fine. It's not going to break. It might tangle. So you want to be careful there. But it's nothing to be afraid of. It's really easy to work with as long as you know how to handle it, how to start it, how to join it, and how to make sure that you don't get mad at it. So hopefully that should get you started. Next time we're going to talk about different cast-ons you can use depending on what sort of project you want to work on. If you're doing something lengthwise or something narrow or something starting from the top and working down, starting from the bottom and working in. And we'll go over that and starting with some lace stitches as well. So I'll see you then.